Welcome to Run Tall with Tim, the YouTube channel that's dedicated to all runners everywhere. I'm Tim, and I upload new running videos every single week. If you're new to the channel, I try to get videos out on both Wednesday and Saturday mornings, and that's at 5 a.m. Standard Eastern Time here in the US. And if you want to save yourself a little time, I tried to make that easy for you. All you have to do is open the description, and there you'll see that I've created chapters. Simply click on a timestamp for the part of the video that you want to watch, and it'll take you right there. On today's episode, I'm taking a look at the Asics Dynablast after 50 miles. Now, I started running this shoe when it was warm weather. It was probably August 2020. It's now January 2021. So it's a good opportunity for us to come back together, see how the shoe's been doing, holding up over the 50 miles, as well as talk about the performance. Before we get to all of that, let's take a look to see what it looks like to run in these shoes. Then when we come back together, we'll take a real close look at the Asics Dynablast. So this was a shoe that I was really excited to try, mainly because I'd been running in the Nova Blast just prior to this shoe release, and I've had so much fun running in that shoe. I was really curious what Asics had up their sleeve for another daily trainer that featured the FLYTEFOAM Blast midsole material. And so let's talk about it and see what they came up with. Now, it runs $110 US. So, that's not terrible. A lot of the daily trainers that are, high quality shoes that you can put a lot of miles on, run around that $130 mark. So I think $110 is, they priced it right. I think it's worth $110. I'll just say that right up front. So let's, and the weight of the shoe. Now the weight isn't it's kind of mid-weight. It's not the heaviest daily trainer that's out there, but it's not the lightest either. They have a stated weight on their website for a men's size 9, and that's US, at 8.8 ounces. Now, I put it on my scales, and they're pretty accurate usually. They came in quite a bit lighter. They came in 8.3 ounces on my scales, or 235 grams. So let's take a look and see what we're getting for the $110 and what we're getting for that 8.3 ounces in weight. We'll zoom in on the upper, and as we do that, we can see that they have some perforations up in the toe box. Now the upper is a knit material, and it's pretty soft. It's really soft to the touch. And up in the toe box, it's a little bit stretchy, so it feels comfortable. You have plenty of room to splay your toes if you want to. But then what they did, and as we pan around to the side of the shoe, they've got a fair amount of plastic overlay that starts right at the base of that eyelet chain and goes pretty much all the way back around to the shoe, or the heel of the shoe. And what that does is it really stiffens up that material in that midfoot area, giving you the ability to get a more lockdown feeling when you lace your shoes up. So I did appreciate that. Now, one interesting kind of side note from that is I was doing some calf stretches. So, I had my foot up against, something, and I was kind of stretching it out there. And when I did that, I noticed that right here on the shoe, right where that Asics symbol starts, stuck straight out. And at first, when I looked down at my feet, I wasn't sure what the heck was going on there. It looked a little strange to me. And my first thought was, is that my pinky toe sticking out of the side of the shoe? But it wasn't. It was just, a natural crease in the shoe that kind of coincided where the end of the material is in that toe box reinforced area, and where that Asics symbol meets is what caused that. So no real concerns. It was just a little jarring to look down and see it so pronounced sticking out of the side of the shoe. I wasn't sure what it was until, like I said, I did a little bit more investigation. So aside from having that plastic overlay in the midfoot, and work our way around to the heel counter of the shoe, you can see that they've got a little bit of plastic overlay back there as well. So let's take a look at the eyelet chain. Now this is a pretty standard eyelet chain. The one thing I will note is that it appears to me that it's a bit wider, across, or the space between, and it felt comfortable. I was able to get a pretty good lockdown feeling, as I mentioned, across that midfoot, lacing the shoe up. So I didn't have any issues with that at all. And they do have some reinforced material, both on the outside as well as on the inside cage of the eyelet chain. So now let's look at the tongue of the shoe. Now it's not gusseted. You can see that it does have some wings. It does lay flat on my foot. I didn't have any issues with it migrating around. It was very comfortable. And I would say that it's just kind of moderately padded. So it's not super thin, but it's certainly not overly done. I think I hit it just about right for the purpose of this shoe. Now let's look at the collar and the tab of the shoe and the padding in those areas. And again, it's pretty moderate here. It's a standard padding, really, nothing unusual about it. And they have just an ample amount. They didn't skimp on it like they might or you might expect in a racing shoe, but they didn't go plush either in something, that you might find in a shoe like this Saucony Triumph 18 that is a really luxury shoe. It's, again, a bit more moderate padding, but I felt like it was really comfortable, regardless of the length of the run that I had taken them on. So let's take a look at the heel counter of the shoe. And I mentioned that they have some structure here, and it's not overly done. But if you are looking for a shoe that has a little bit of structure in the heel to help you with some stability, you will find it here. One interesting thing to note, though, is oftentimes when I talk about stability, I'm referring to pronation. And on Asics website, they list this shoe as a neutral to an underpronator shoe. Now, I overpronate, and so when I saw that, it kind of raised a question in my mind if I would be comfortable running in this shoe. And I didn't have any issues with that. For the most part, I'm a midfoot striker. And, it was fine. It was comfortable. Again, regardless of the length of the run that I had taken these on, whether it was, a short, 3-4 mile stint, or if I had a little bit longer workout, maybe 10 miles or so, I didn't have any issues with that. And I may not have tried this shoe just given that red flag that I saw in their description. It's a red flag for me. And if you're overpronator, I suspect that it probably is for you too. But the Asics Blast has that same description, and I didn't have any issues with that. So I felt somewhat comfortable moving forward and giving this shoe a try so that I could share it with you today. And I'm glad that I did, because it seems to have worked out just fine. So let's talk about that midsole material. It's their FLYTEFOAM Blast material, but it is nothing like the NovaBlast. NovaBlast is really squishy, and that's a shoe that, kind of polarized runners. Either you loved it or you hated it. There didn't seem to be a lot of in between there. But this shoe is not that shoe at all. I don't know what they did differently with the FLYTEFOAM Blast material necessarily, but it does seem to be a little bit more stout. And there's no squish at all. There is a bounce there. And I haven't really noticed any deterioration in that bounce from the very first day that I run in it when it was warm weather to just recently in my run on a much colder weather. So it is below freezing here now. And, you know, I still have that really good, and I would call it a solid bounce. You know, it's not a spring. You know, it is kind of a stout bounce to that midsole foam, but it feels comfortable. And it's not the tallest stack height. It's got 28 millimeter stack height in the heel and a 16 millimeter stack height in the forefoot for a 12 millimeter offset from the heel to the toe. So I'd put this in kind of that middle cushioned category. And as I strike the ground with my midfoot and roll through, you know, it felt pretty natural. So, you know, it felt good on my gait cycle. I didn't have any issues with that at all. I think this shoe is a really solid daily trainer. You know, I think it fits in that category really well. So, you know, something that you can simply log a lot of miles on pretty comfortably. And, you know, on my scales, as I mentioned, it came on 8.3 ounces, and that's a pretty decent weight for a daily trainer that gives you, you know, some pretty good comfort, which this shoe does. So let's flip it over and we'll take a look at that outsole rubber that they have. And now this is not their AHAR rubber. You know, they feature that in some other shoes, which is their high abrasion version. They don't list that on their website, so I'm assuming that it's just plain old blown rubber, but they have lots of it. And you can see that it pretty much covers from their heel all the way to the toe. And I haven't seen any signs of excessive wear on that rubber. So, you know, I think this shoe is going to go quite a long ways. You know, typically, you know, if you can get 400 or 500 miles out of a shoe, you're doing pretty well. And I think that this shoe, you should easily be able to get that 400 or 500 miles. So definitely get your money's worth for that $110. One of the interesting designs of both the NovaBlast and this shoe and the Dynablast is that groove that they have that's kind of in that midfoot back to the heel area. And they designed that to give you a bit of a trampoline effect. So that just adds to the bounce of that FLYTEFOAM Blast material to kind of propel you forward. Now you do notice that. I noticed it. I actually noticed it more when I put these shoes on and just started to walk in them, because you can feel where your heel just kind of sits down, where that midsole material kind of rolls out underneath you. I didn't notice it as much when I was running, but clearly it's there, and it does feel nice to run in, and that was certainly one of the features of the NovaBlast that I enjoyed as well. So you do feel it here. Again, I think I feel it more when I walk. I can actually feel my heel kind of sink into that area. But it's very enjoyable. And this shoe has been really comfortable to run in. And I've had it in and out of my rotation for the last few months. You know, and it's a shoe that I could have easily left in. It's just, I try to get to a lot of shoes to share with you guys. And so sometimes it takes me a few months to get to that 50 mile on any one particular shoe. But now that we're there, I'm glad that we did. I've enjoyed the last 50 miles that I've had in this shoe. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, maybe give it a thumbs up. As always, run tall, run strong, be kind to one another. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.